I don't remember where I was. Summer camp, probably. Possibly summer school. But I was someplace with a wide green lawn in the company of other young people. And the folks in charge told us, it's fine to walk or run on the grass. Just don't make a path. Don't take the straight line every time, or in time your steps will leave a scar. Well, we took this message to heart, and as we crossed from dormitory to dining hall, we would cry out, "Don't make a path!" And then we would run in these exuberant, crazy loops and circles all around the lawn. It was absolutely the least efficient way possible to get from point A to point B. I believe Thoreau would have approved, because it was extravagant in the literal sense of the word. As my camp counselors knew, a path once taken quickly becomes the path of least resistance. We find ourselves following the same route each day. It is familiar. We can do it on autopilot, even if we have not had our coffee and fully awakened to the day. Now and then, I find myself literally taking the road most traveled, even when I had set out to drive somewhere else altogether. It's easy to take the same walk. It's easy to sit in the same pew each Sunday. It is easy to think the same thoughts and keep the same habits and eat the same meal. I understand the pull of the familiar. My kids will tell you that no matter how many flavors on the menu, I will order chocolate ice cream every single time. But in time, the well-trod path becomes such a deeply cut rut that it becomes harder and harder to depart from it. Anyone who has lived with addiction knows how deep a path it carves for itself. Anyone who has struggled with perseveration of thoughts knows how hard it can be to leave the track and take a new train of thought. Anyone who has ever nursed a grievance knows how easy it is to keep revisiting old ground. The scars across our landscapes can take so long to heal that sometimes we fall back into them years later. The ruts of Roman chariot wheels can still be seen today. And it may or may not be a coincidence that modern railroad tracks are spaced at the same distance. 5 years after he left Walden Pond, Thoreau tells us, he could still see the path his feet had worn there. And he wrote, I fear that others may have fallen into it. A well-traveled path is a well-marked path. It is a path of least resistance. Walden was for Thoreau both a place and a practice, an experiment in intentional and mindful living. The paths he made on that outer landscape became for him a sign and a warning that he was becoming absent-minded. I first came to the Massachusetts woods as a graduate student in the UMass Forestry Department. And I remember the day my advisor first took me out to our field study, which is in the woods on Mount Toby, across the river. And the first half of that walk was along a clearly visible hiking trail. But I was somewhat dismayed when, for the second half, he just turned off the trail and headed off into the woods. And from the moment we left the trail, I became filled with apprehension that I would never be able to find my way there on my own, or back once I got there. How could I find my way through these woods without a trail marker or even a trail? What did my guide see here that I did not see? I needed markers. And I have to confess that in the end, I made some. A few strips of colorful flagging, a rock cairn here and there, because I never quite trusted my ability to navigate unmarked territory. And to my shame, I never did remove all these markers. So I can only hope that time and weather have taken care of that. Sometimes it is the higher calling not to leave your mark on the world. So where did Henry David go after Walden? He returned, in fact, to what seems to be a well-trod path. He moved into his parents' home. In his defense, it should be noted that he returned as a rent-paying boarder, so his choice may have been motivated by a desire to support his family as much as perhaps the reverse. He lived simply. He earned his living as a teacher, as a lecturer, as a surveyor. He worked in his father's business. But again, in his defense, it should be noted that his father's business was the manufacture of pencils. And it seems fitting to me that Thoreau would enter the world of business by the production of such a simple and useful tool. He continued to walk daily in the woods around Concord. But he also traveled other, more subversive paths. Henry and his family were ardent abolitionists, and it was for this cause that he once spent a night in the Concord jail for refusing to pay his taxes. His parents' home was, in fact, a stop on the Underground Railway. Henry David was their conductor, who escorted refugees on the next leg of their journey from slavery in the South to freedom in Canada. Now, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had abolished slavery long before Thoreau was even born, but the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 required that even citizens of free states should assist in the capture and deportation of those deemed to be slaves. No due process necessary. Had Thoreau been caught, he would have faced more than one night in jail. Each mile of the Underground Railroad, each leg in the journey from slavery to freedom, is perilous. The trail markers are secret and subtle. The hunted cannot afford to leave a trail behind them. And I can well imagine Harriet Tubman leading her people through the wilderness and urgently whispering to them, "Don't make a path." So how do we depart from the path of least resistance? How do we heal the ancient scars on our landscape? It is not just the Romans who laid down chariot tracks. How barren was the path made by the Trail of Tears? How deep are the ruts carved by centuries of slave trade? How easily we seem to be falling back into them. The pathways of peace are never as entrenched as an imperial highway. The path of least resistance is easy to find and easy to follow, but it does not lead to freedom. So where do we begin? Perhaps we begin, like Henry David, in training ourselves for mindful off-trail navigation by taking small departures from the autopilot routine of our days, for stepping away from the crowd just a little bit, for maybe sitting in a different pew and singing a different song. And maybe, just maybe, when you leave here, taking a new route and seeing what you discover on your way. Let us rise and sing a song together. You will find it in your insert and it may be perhaps familiar to some of you. And we'll sing it through twice so we can warm up.